Welcome, everybody. It's a very special episode of The Buck Stops Here. And you can't have the show called The Buck Stops Here without your buck. That's me, Kirk Buchner. I run NotInHallOfFame.com and the sister sites, the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame, Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the United States Athletics Hall of Fame. Check those out after you're done watching this show, www.theusahof.com. It is the only Hall of Fame done for the people, by the people, and it's actually something where democracy works. There is no electoral college in this.
Awesome.
And with me today is the son of football legend Maxie Baughan, Mark Baughan. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Kirk. Thank you.
I think there's when a lot of people are growing up as little kids, we always see our dads as larger than life figures. But in the game, if my dad could beat up your dad, you probably would win.
Yeah, it never came up as a kid.
I'm sure it wouldn't.
Yeah, my dad was he was always just dad, right? Growing up, never knew any different. Doing certain things, meeting certain people, going to certain places was just part of it, and it was always normal. It's just kind of how it was. He didn't bring any type of ego or star, or whatever you want to call it, home, and certainly was not like that around us. My mom wouldn't have allowed him to, so it didn't really start to get an idea of what he was or who he was until a little bit older, 12, 13, 14 years old, when we were in Baltimore. And I don't, to be totally frank and honest, I don't know that I ever really fully appreciated just how good a football player he was until this whole Hall of Fame thing kind of started to take some traction, I guess, because he never talked about it. He never thought about it. Like, I'm sure he thought about it, but we never sat around the table and discussed the Hall of Fame and what's going to happen. We never talked about anything like that. We were just normal old home. Football and who he was never really, there wasn't a thing within the family. So we didn't know any different. I guess there were times when people would bring it up in conversation, and don't know who your dad is, don't you realize who your father is, don't you realize what he is or what he did? And I guess, like I said, really didn't start to grasp all of that until a little bit later. And I'm confident both my mom and my father would not have wanted it any other way. In terms of beating people up, that really wasn't my dad, I jokingly, but looking back, you kind of see these different events over time and things that happen and the experiences you were able to have as the son of somebody who I guess was a celebrity, and we were able to do some pretty special things, and it was looking back, it was fun.
I was doing some research. I'm not sure if that was you in the picture, but there's a picture of your dad with Richard Nixon. Oh,
it wasn't planned.
Okay, yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
that's the one. That's the one I saw.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I think you have to Google up Jack Pardee and White House Nixon tapes on the quote unquote Watergate tapes.
That's where I found it. Actually, it was a different picture, but it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was when we were in Washington, I guess 74, maybe, or we actually didn't go, 72, 71. It was my father, Jack Pardee,
Mhm.
Diane Talbert, and I can't remember. I think there was maybe one other. We went to the White House, met Richard Nixon in the Oval Office.
Mhm.
I remember it. It was kind of cool.
Because that's got to be one of your first inklings, like, oh my God, my dad is, he's a star.
Um, there were certain things that happened that you turn around. My parents were dear friends with Jim Nabors, uh, who
Oh,
he sang with Gomer Pyle.
yeah.
He sang the national anthem at the Rams games out in LA, and he's from Sylacauga, Alabama. So there's a Alabama connection with my parents. Became dear friends. My mom was bridge partners with Rock Hudson. You know, get rid of all the talk about them and all of that. But I remember going to Jim Nabors' party and everybody being there. I got pictures of George Allen, Johnny Unitas, all kind of people at parties with Jim Nabors and Charlton Heston and all kind of crazy stuff like that. And my father was driving around Jim Nabors' the yellow Corvette, and I remember going to practice and got pulled over by a California Highway Patrol. When that movie Chips or show Chips came out with the guys on motorcycles, they pulled my dad over, and instead of giving him a ticket, they asked for his autograph. We went to SeaWorld, and my dad fed the orca whales, and we were right there. So stuff like that just happened, and it just kind of seemed like the way it was. So I guess being a celebrity, you kind of get to do some different things, and being the son of one, kind of got to tag along. It was fun. It was neat growing up.
Yeah, no, it certainly sounds like it. Now, the main thing that we were going to talk about today is the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You said that it's something that your dad either didn't talk about or just didn't really care to. It's not, though, that hasn't been inducted into multiple halls of fame, the College Football Hall of Fame, Georgia Tech. I believe he's on the Eagles Hall of Fame or the Ring of Honor. That was, I believe, not that long ago when they did that.
I think it was 2014, 2015, something like that. Yeah, it wasn't all that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I guess it's the Eagles Hall of Fame. I'm not sure what they call it, but it's their version of it.
And of interest, some of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, they changed their rules recently. And one of my good friends, I have to give him a shout out because he was the first to sort of call that out nationally, Jack Silverstein. Silverstein, I always say that wrong. I always want to keep saying Jack Silverstein in the E Street Band, but apologies, Jack, if you're watching. He was basically looking at how the math wasn't going to math, and how when they lumped the coaches, the contributors, and the seniors in the final round and said, okay, you've got to get 80%. With 5 candidates, that's pretty hard to get multiple people in. And sure enough, it was only one. And your dad was on that cut list. We don't know how he finished. We know that in that final room, thanks to the work of Clark Judge, who always sort of like posts what he can post without sort of, I guess, breaking confidentiality agreements, they only discussed him for 6 minutes. And it feels like one of those cases where if the Football Hall of Fame had a direct elect committee, like basketball used to do, in terms of seniors or special committees, he'd probably be in. Instead, going through the second layer where it makes it very, very difficult. Now you're also competing with people who played long after your dad. Because I think what the gap between him and Sterling Sharp, who got in, was what, 15 years? Because your dad lost played in, because he had to come back for that 1 year under Allen, right? In 74?
Okay. The timeline of my dad's career is, I think one of the things that kind of is a detriment if that's the right word. His last really real productive year was 69. We got hurt, didn't play in the final playoff game against Minnesota. He played a couple plays and then basically couldn't walk.
Mhm.
And he retired a couple different times. Seemed to be a kind of a habit. It was a habit of him retiring, and then the habit of George Allen talking him into coming back. And I have actually talked with Bruce Allen and George Allen Jr. about some things, and he did that with Bill George when he went to LA. He coached Bill George into coming out of retirement in 65, 66, to help come to LA and implement his defense. That time frame is a little bit goofy because his last real year productively was 69. He came back and played in 70, but didn't play every game and was playing on one leg. And he was part of the Overhill gang, the trade to Washington when Allen went to the Redskins, and was on the quote unquote roster, but never dressed, never really practiced. And then retired again. And for 2 years, coached at Georgia Tech. And then in 74, Coach Allen talked him into coming back, and he came back again.
Mhm.
So, 70, 71, 74, he really didn't. I don't even know that he was 70. He played a little bit with the Rams, but not, he was on one leg. While those 3 years were great for his and my mom's retirement, the way the NFL, PA retirement plan works, those 3 years were huge in what he received and what my mom is still receiving. But I think in terms of any Hall of Fame talk or sort of how that timeline works, it just sort of pushed it back another almost full 5 years.
Mhm.
And I don't really think that he would been a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't know that was in the cards, but that time span separation from when he was really a productive all pro to when he could officially be discussed was a decade, if not a decade plus a year. I think a lot of that has something to do with the lack of recognition from Hall of Fame voters. And I did have one of my notes right here about the discussion time frame because I saw that article, and I tried to look for it. To be, I guess, honest with you and frank, discussing my father for 6 minutes for the Hall of Fame after everything that's gone on and all this, I think it's an embarrassing indictment on how the Hall of Fame is looking at seniors and the different guys who deserve consideration. For my father, and clearly my opinion is going to be somewhat biased, but he earned a gold jacket, period, on the field. You can't look at the data, you can't look at the stats, you can't look at the honors that he did earn and where they rank and where they position him, not only against linebackers in the Hall of Fame, but the whole Hall of Fame itself. I don't think you can come up with an argument to say he does not belong. I think that argument starts to get into what people voting now think. And in my opinion, there's a clear, distinct difference between, what some individuals earned and what they deserve versus what voters these days are taking into consideration when they vote. Data and facts and honors earned are not part of the list that they're using. I don't know what list that is, but it certainly is not black and white data. And it's frustrating, it's disappointing, and where it ends up, I don't know, but I guess we'll have to wait and see if they, in my opinion, they come to their senses.
Under the current system, that's going to have to change, because as we're recording this, it's going to be Hall of Fame weekend. Only 4 people are getting in, so it's going to be their smallest class ever, and they did this to themselves based on how they set up those new rules. I think when they see a lot less people there in the stands, which there's going to be, they might do a course correct. And I don't know if that's sort of going to help that one blind spot. I do know that there are some people in that room sort of pulling for him and pushing for him. Just that because some of the people on that committee overlap with that same committee, the committee that actually makes that decision. So there's clearly a contingent of the historians who really want your father in. It's now then convincing a lot of those other people. And next year, I believe, it just feels like it's going to be Robert Kraft's year or Bill Belichick. And then it's weird to me that they've lumped in the seniors with the coaches' contributors. I don't know why they're doing that. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And that's also another obstacle that will sort of help prevent people like your dad or a lot of the other senior or like long-waiting seniors. We've got, and I think you're right about a lot of things. I think there's that recency bias that definitely is there. And this is nothing against Sterling Sharp, who was an incredible player. But the relative brevity of his career compared to your father sort of dominating the 1960s as one of the best interior linemen of that decade, it's strange on its surface. And I think for a lot of people, a lot of fans, and I think some of the people who were on that committee, if it didn't happen before the Super Bowl started, it didn't exist.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of how they're going about all of this. They seem to change the rules and how they're doing things on a whim, or for some reason why they changed the scenario for electing seniors and coaches and contributors and lumping them together. I don't know what the genesis for that idea was. It certainly made it more difficult. I talked to several people after he was named a finalist. Prominent, not voters, but ex-players, names that people would know. They did not know that change had been made. They were telling me that my father was in, that it was done. It was pretty much a done deal after he was named a finalist, and just how they had done it historically and the way the process had worked historically. And I'd read a couple things and I was like, gosh, I'm not sure. I was apprehensive. I was excited he had been named a finalist, but was a little bit concerned and questioning, whether or not what exactly was going on. It didn't take too long for it to become evident that the rules had changed and the whole way they were going about it had changed. And it was, to me, it was obvious what was going to happen, and the fact that they had anything and everything was pointing towards Sterling Sharp being elected, which is great. Good for him. Great football player for 6 years. It certainly is not going to be an easy path for any senior now, which I think is a shame, because there are lots of names and lots of individuals who earned it. I'm not sure deserve is the right word or strong enough. There are people that belong in the Hall of Fame that are not. And I think the opposite of that is true as well. But it just gets a little frustrating when I think the data proves it, the facts prove it. He earned it on the field, yet the proverbial goalpost for getting in seems to keep moving. And every time they move it, it's detrimental to my father.
Mm-hmm.
So it's frustrating.
Yeah, it's also frustrating for a lot of the voters because they're not even consulted on the changes to the rules too. So it's
I know I have talked with numerous voters,
that
and
was what I was going to ask you, is that some of them reached out to you?
I think probably more me reaching out to them. I'm not sure how I'm not sure what the word is, excited they are to reach out to the son of a player from 60 years ago. But I have reached out. I have talked to several. By and large, they have been wonderful, receptive. We'll talk, correspond, email. So, I think it's probably a fairly accurate, or they all have their opinions and they're entitled to them. That's what they do, right? They kind of have to. Whether or not it's a positive or a negative for my father, a lot of them don't really disclose that, I guess, if that's the way to put it. But I have talked to several, more than several, numerous, who are dismayed as much as I and my family are about how the whole thing has played out. So I do know there is support. And I have talked to numerous voters, writers who have said they support him. And I guess it is a matter of hopefully trying to recruit more of them.
Well, hopefully he gets back on that senior ballot again.
That would be nice.
Yeah. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. That means a lot to me personally. Is there anything that we can sort of promote on your behalf?
Kirk, we appreciate, my mother appreciates everything that is done by people out there concerning all of this. I still have hope. I think there might be a diminishing factor to that hope based on what happened last year. But I guess you never really want to totally give up. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Not just for my dad. Certainly, I consider my dad at the top of the list, but there are a lot of individuals out there who earned a spot. And I think there hopefully can be a little bit of a recognition or a shift. The Hall of Fame is a museum. That's what it is. And it's a place to recognize and appreciate what the NFL is all about, from the start to the finish. And it's not just about guys who played and were exceptional football players from 1985 on. And I'm sure there are multiple reasons, multiple factors as to why somebody is in and why they aren't. But I think if you honestly placed and put yourself in 1969 and looked at what my father had done, there is no answer other than he absolutely deserves to be there with peers that are in now. So I guess hope eternal for common sense and or return to, I guess, respecting what was earned. So that's what we'll hope for.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to do this. Everyone watching, remember after this, you're going to go vote at the United States Athletic Hall of Fame, www.theusahof.com. It is for us, by us, and all votes count. Thank you so much. Take care, and wherever you are, wherever you may be, make the state count because it never comes again.
Thanks, Kirk.